My boss fired me for taking a day off to attend my father's funeral. He called back begging when he lost his biggest client. I, 28M, never thought I'd be sharing this story, but recent events have left me reeling, and I need to get this off my chest. What started as the worst week of my life somehow transformed into an unexpected turning point in my career, and I'm still processing everything that happened. For context, I've been working as a senior account manager at a mid-sized marketing firm in the city for the past 4 years. I worked my way up from junior associate, building a solid reputation and managing some of our biggest accounts. My boss, the director of client relations, had always been demanding, but I figured that's just how it was in our industry. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags. It all started 8 months ago when my father was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. The diagnosis came out of nowhere. He'd never smoked a day in his life, stayed active, ate well. The doctors said it was just terrible luck. Throughout his treatment, I balanced hospital visits with work commitments, using my lunch breaks for doctor's appointments and staying late to make up for any time lost. My boss knew about the situation but never showed much sympathy. His standard response was always some variation of, as long as it doesn't affect your work performance. Last Wednesday morning, I was preparing for our quarterly client presentations when I got the call from my mother. Her voice was barely a whisper when she told me Dad had passed away in his sleep. Even though we'd known this was coming, nothing could have prepared me for that moment. I sat in my car in the parking lot for almost an hour, trying to process the news and gather myself enough to function. Once I could think clearly, I sent an email to my boss. I regret to inform you that my father passed away this morning. I need to take Thursday and Friday off to handle the funeral arrangements and attend the service. I've updated all my presentation materials for the quarterly review, and everything is saved on the shared drive. I can brief the team on any questions before I leave today. I thought it was a professional, reasonable request. In my 4 years at the company, I'd never taken unscheduled time off. I'd worked through holidays, covered for other team members, and even dialed into meetings while on vacation. Surely, they could manage without me for 2 days during the most difficult time of my life. The response came within minutes, and I still have screenshots of it because sometimes I read it just to remind myself I'm not crazy. This is extremely unprofessional timing. The major client presentation on Friday is mandatory for all senior account managers. Their CMO specifically requested your presence. Find someone else to handle the funeral arrangements. We can't risk losing this account over personal matters. I read that email 5 times, each time hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something more humane. When they didn't, I replied, I apologize, but this isn't something I can reschedule. This is my father's funeral. The presentation materials are complete, and any team member can walk through them. I've never asked for emergency time off before, and I wouldn't be asking now if it wasn't absolutely necessary. His response was even shorter. Then consider this your final week. Clear your desk by Wednesday end of day. We'll mail your last check. I sat there staring at my screen, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. 4 years of dedication, the late nights, the weekend work, the successful campaigns, the client relationships I'd built from scratch. All of it meant nothing because I needed 2 days to bury my father. In that moment, something inside me just broke. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't even respond. I just forwarded both emails to my personal account, gathered my personal items into a box, and walked out. A few of my colleagues noticed something was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. How do you tell people that your boss just fired you for wanting to attend your father's funeral? The next 2 days passed in a blur of funeral arrangements, family gatherings, and grief. The service was beautiful, exactly what Dad would have wanted. Simple, dignified, with his favorite jazz playing softly in the background. During the eulogy, I talked about how he taught me the importance of integrity, of standing up for what's right even when it costs you something. Little did I know how relevant those lessons would become. The weekend was spent with family, looking through old photos, sharing memories, and trying to come to terms with our new reality. Between grief counseling sessions and family meals, I updated my resume and started browsing job listings. I couldn't afford to wallow in anger or self-pity. I had bills to pay and a career to salvage. Monday morning, everything changed. It started with a LinkedIn message from someone I didn't recognize, the VP of marketing at major client. She asked if we could talk about what happened at Friday's presentation. Curious, I agreed to a call. What she told me left me speechless. Apparently, the presentation hadn't gone well. My boss, trying to explain my absence, had made a snide comment about me prioritizing personal matters over client commitments. When pressed for details, he dismissively mentioned my father's funeral, apparently expecting the client to share his frustration with my lack of commitment. He couldn't have misjudged the situation more badly if he'd tried. The VP, as it turned out, had lost her own father to cancer the previous year. Her company had given her 2 weeks of bereavement leave, no questions asked. The idea that someone would be fired for taking 2 days to attend their father's funeral wasn't just offensive to her. It was personal. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, she told me. We've worked with your firm for 3 years, and you've always been professional, responsive, and creative. When he said that, something clicked. All the little things that had been bothering us about the agency's culture suddenly made sense. By Monday afternoon, major client had pulled their entire portfolio, worth about 40% of our company's annual revenue. They cited irreconcilable differences in corporate values as their official reason. That's when the calls started. First came HR, expressing deep concern about the misunderstanding regarding my employment status. They assured me it was all a terrible mistake and that I should take as much bereavement leave as I needed. Then came the company president, profusely apologizing for my boss's completely unauthorized actions and offering me my job back with a substantial raise, better benefits, and a written guarantee of management changes. Finally, my boss called. His voice had lost all its usual arrogance as he stumbled through an awkward apology, claiming he'd been under a lot of pressure and hadn't meant to be insensitive. He even tried to play it off as a miscommunication, saying he'd never actually intended to fire me. I listened to all of them politely and professionally. I thanked them for their calls, and then I declined their offers. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. Sometimes, the way people treat you when they think they have all the power tells you everything you need to know about who they really are. I'd seen behind the curtain, and there was no going back. But the story doesn't end there. That VP who had pulled her company's contract? She didn't just do it out of anger or sympathy. During our call, she'd mentioned that her company had been planning to bring their marketing operations in-house within the next year. They were already setting up the department and looking for experienced people to lead their accounts. We need people who understand both the technical aspects of marketing and the human side of business, she told me. Your situation showed us both your professional capabilities and your character. We'd like to offer you a position. The offer they sent over the next day was impressive: better salary, better benefits, better hours, and a clear path for advancement. But what really sold me was the company culture. During the interview process, they didn't just talk about work-life balance, they demonstrated it. Every person I met shared stories about how the company had supported them through personal challenges. I start next month. As for my old boss, word is he's been temporarily reassigned to regional sales, a fancy way of saying demoted. The company lost several other clients after word got around about what happened, and they're struggling to rebuild their reputation. The whole experience has taught me several valuable lessons. 1. No job is worth sacrificing your dignity or your right to mourn the loss of a loved one. 2. Corporate culture isn't just about ping-pong tables and casual Fridays. It's about how a company treats people when things get tough. 3. Sometimes, standing up for what's right costs you something in the short term, but leads to better opportunities in the long run. 4. Document everything. Those email screenshots probably saved me from a lot of gaslighting about what really happened. My dad always told me that integrity matters more than money, and that how you treat people when you have power over them reveals your true character. Walking away from that toxic environment, even before I knew I had another opportunity lined up, was the best way I could honor his memory. To everyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, don't let anyone make you feel guilty for taking care of yourself or your family during difficult times. No company that would deny you the basic human dignity of saying goodbye to a loved one deserves your loyalty or dedication. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thank you all for the supportive comments and awards. To address some common questions. 1. Yes, I've documented everything and kept all email exchanges. 2. No, I'm not planning legal action. The new opportunity is worth more to me than a lawsuit would be. 3. Yes, I did tell my old boss exactly how I felt about his behavior, but I kept it professional. I simply told him that I hope he never has to experience what it's like to have someone try to deny him the chance to say goodbye to a parent. For those asking about my mom, she's doing okay, taking it day by day. The silver lining of my job situation is that my new position's flexibility will allow me to spend more time helping her adjust. 5. To everyone sharing similar stories in the comments, I'm sorry you went through that, and I hope you found better situations too. No one should have to choose between their job and their basic human needs. Sometimes life's hardest moments show us who people really are, both the worst and the best in human nature. I'm grateful that in my case, it ultimately led to positive change, but I know not everyone is as fortunate. If you're in a toxic work environment, start planning your exit strategy now. You deserve better. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.